this Spielberg movie basically presents those trying to suppress the disclosure as the bad guys. If there was an alien threat, you could justify the centralization of global power to meet the threat. And you can also allow the acceptance of a non-human force to infiltrate it openly while being presented as a benevolent force that's just come along at the right time to save humanity from itself. What they won't tell you, it's the non-human force that's been manipulating humanity and through the global cult manipulating events to bring about where we are now.
Hey, Inspire Tribe, my fellow freedom lovers, John Nolan here. Thank you so much for tuning in to another Inspired Conversation. Today, we're going to talk about Disclosure Day, this much anticipated Spielberg movie that just came out. And, it's many researchers in the truth and freedom arena have said this is part of the bigger disclosure movement by the US government. Well, David Icke, truth and freedom researcher and author of 35 years, has just seen the movie and he said, let's talk about it. I'm going to tell you what I saw and what I think. So please welcome with me, David Icke. It's great to have you back, sir.
Thanks, mate. Yeah, I don't know why, but the Spielberg film came out in England this afternoon. I saw it just after noon, and it's still waiting in America. I don't know. That's a strange one.
Yeah, I just purchased tickets for when it's coming out here in a couple of days. I want to read one quote to you, David, and then I want your fresh impressions of the movie. I watched the interviews by Steven Spielberg on the movie, and he said, "When I made Close Encounters of the Third Kind, I thought, wouldn't it be great if this could come true? With everything that has happened from 1977 until today, I can now make Disclosure Day and say, isn't it going to be wonderful when people realize after seeing this movie that everything is true and always has been?" Okay, so you have now seen the movie. What do you say to that?
Well, I said from the start that the Disclosure Day movie would be a psyop, a misdirection, in other words. And I remember saying in the final days of 2025 that 2026 would be the year of the alien, because I felt that this Spielberg movie in June, near the middle of the year, would be a peg on which other stuff would be hung, and it would also spark debate and bring the subject more into public focus. And within literally weeks of the turn of the year, you had Trump and his regime and the Pentagon saying they were going to release more footage and be more transparent about the whole UFO subject and story. And they have released footage since then, and they say they're going to release, they say a lot more. And for that to coincide with this movie coming out, for me, I mean, it's not a coincidence. And the other thing that you can see from authority in general is that it lies to us. On occasions when it tells something like the truth, it's a kind of a rarity. It basically lies to us because if you're going to control billions of people, you have to control their perception. You have to control their perception of reality, their perception of self, and you have to control their perception of the world in general and how they see it. And so, if you want to do that, the last thing you want is for your target population to know the truth of what's happening in any area, not just this one, in any area. So, what you can be sure of is whatever they put on public display is what they want us to see. And what they don't put on public display is what they absolutely don't want us to see, because it would affect our perception of everything. And what Spielberg is saying there, and I've seen his interviews in the promotion of the film, is that basically it's going to change people's sense of reality in relation to, quote, aliens. And he's even also said that it's going to have Christians reevaluating their beliefs. Well, I found that a bit OTT. When one of the kind of points of the film, one of the scenes in the film, is a nun basically saying, "No, no, no, this is not going to affect our sense of, quote, God. It's just that God didn't say that humans were his only creation. Said that they were his superior creation on earth. That he would have created other species, beings as well. So the emphasis on, oh, you've got to, as a Christian, reevaluate everything, didn't really come across as a prime theme in the film at all. But what did was the way the whole alien story was portrayed. You can go two ways, and they go both ways in terms of government and society in general, in terms of the manipulation of the population via the alien threat, or however you portray it. One is you can go down the road of fear, where you're terrified of an alien presence, and you give your power away to government and military to protect you from the aliens. And the chosen direction of Spielberg, I think his other movies can confirm that, is sympathetic portrayal of the alien presence, where you, as this film does, it wants you to be empathetic with them, in the sense of a the word empathy, which is a word and a term and a part of the film that Spielberg has emphasized in his promotional interviews. There is a point where it's said, in effect, that the aliens are saying to humans, you must be more empathetic, you must have more empathy, or the world will go on as it is. And the implication was that the aliens have empathy. And there is also the sympathetic portrayal of, like, the Roswell footage. What they the basis of the story, I don't want to give too much away to spoil it for people, but the basis of the story is there's a group that has hacked into government cyber structures and space, and they've got all these videos of alien presence, of spaceships, of the Roswell incident, and of Greys being captured after crashes, like at Roswell and elsewhere, and how badly these Greys were treated by humans in captivity. And so there's an empathy that you are invited to have, which says that we feel sorry for the aliens, basically, and the aliens. The theme is the aliens are only they're empathetic to us. They're not threatening. But when you do the research as I have over the last 36 years now, I'm not saying for a second there are not benevolent entities out there in all infinity. Of course there are. The point is that the networks that are behind Hollywood and behind governments and behind Silicon Valley and the media and corporations and all these this one global network. In truth, if you go deep enough, they are not empathetic. They are not benevolent. Quite the opposite. And what I'm saying, in my books over the years, is that human society is controlled by a non-human force which actually created the very sense of reality that we have, this, as we experience it, physical, solid, material reality, which more and more scientists, quantum physicists, and others, mainstream scientists even, are now starting to realize is actually not true. It's not the way things are. And so you have this non-human force operating in another dimension of reality, which interpenetrates this one. And this global cult, as I call it, this global network of secret societies with an interlocking mission control leadership, it is serving the interests of that non-human force within human society, in the shadows of human society, yes, but in human society. And it's controlling the corporations, the governments, the Silicon Valleys, the media in terms of ownership, Hollywood, all these things. And that structure, that combination of the non-human force, which can express itself in many ways, reptilian, what they call the Nordics, the tall whites, and the greys and other types. That structure is anything but benevolent to humanity. It has anything but empathy for humanity. And what this movie does is invert that and puts a, oh no, they're nice really, they just care for us kind of gloss on it. And in that way, it's extremely misleading, because what they don't want us to know is that a non-human force has been manipulating human society all along. The aliens aren't coming. They've been here from the start, the ones I'm talking about. And therefore, they push you away from that to to make sure you never see what's actually happening.
I haven't, based on what you said, that there's one set of eyes that you see it through as a researcher, 36 years watching this movie, and then what are regular people who might not be deep into this, who just watch it as a movie, are going to walk away with? What's their, what is their main message that they're getting? Is it, we are going to communicate with them, we're going to have open communication? Does the movie speak on that at all?
What it's aimed at, it's not aimed at streetwise people because they'll see through it. It's aimed at people that have not done research on this, or have done research but um, have perceived it as there is a cover up of the quote alien presence, and what we need to do is have disclosure of what the government knows. And so you've got uh, people who are saying, yeah, aliens exist. Well, funnily enough, I agree with that as well. But they are seeing the fact that the government has been suppressing that knowledge and suppressing the information they have on that subject. And what we need to do is have disclosure of what the government knows. And in terms of the general public who have not done research on this, the message is from this movie is that the alien presence is positive. We've already treated them very badly when we've captured greys, etc., and that they are basically kindly towards us. That's the message that comes across, and the film also emphasizes and underpins that belief that the government has been suppressing knowledge of the alien presence, and and it needs to be disclosed. So what you've got in the movie are the feds who are seeking to stop the disclosure, which happens towards the end of the film, and you've got the good guys. They're the bad guys. The feds are the bad guys, and then you've got the good guys who are trying to get the information out. I tell another irony because I look for the inversions, and they're usually everywhere. The feds are controlled by this global cult. That's what the deep state is in the different countries. It's this cult, the different national expressions of this cult, and therefore the feds, who are portrayed in the film as the bad guys, are actually ultimately answering to this non-human force. So it's the feds up to this point that have suppressed knowledge of how a non-human force is manipulating human society. The point I would say to those UFO researchers who are saying we must have disclosure is that, yeah, that would be great, but as long as it's the true disclosure and not the disclosure as a misdirection and a diversion to get you to believe in something else that suits the authorities. Because this global cult, it manipulates human society by manipulating the perceptions of the people. This is what censorship is about, and suppression of information and knowledge is all about. It's about emphasizing knowledge, lies often, that will get people to perceive themselves, the world, and this subject in the way that's desired, and to suppress the knowledge that would get them to go, hold on, there's another way of seeing this now. I'm going to look at this. They don't want that. And so my point is, does anyone think that in the days of disclosure and openness that they're going to tell you the truth? Of course they're not. They have no interest in that. Their interest is in giving you what they perceive will get you to see everything, including this subject, in the way that they desire. And this film does that in terms of its empathetic and oh no, they're nice, really kind of feel to the whole thing. And the big bad feds, they're the ones. And yet the feds are controlled by the very network that will have been behind or is behind this so-called period of disclosure.
You know, I'm always reminded of this quote by the assistant of the late first NASA director Wernher von Braun, who was, a German Nazi, was brought over in Operation Paperclip, and she has said, and this has been, sort of circulated many times over the years, that he always talked to her about what was going to happen and how this cult was going to sort of usher in the New World Order. And he said, allegedly, the last card will be the alien card, and it will all be lies. First, do you think that it's an authentic quote? And second, what does that mean, the last card? And are we in this last card stage? And do you think it means this is an act of desperation, or is it just the planned rollout?
Oh, I think it's the planned rollout. I mean, the lady only knows really if it's a real quote, but it certainly makes absolute sense to me because if there was an alien threat, you could justify the centralization of global power to meet the threat. Was it Reagan talked about if there was a threat from outside, from an alien source, then we would all come together. So you can do that, and you can also allow the acceptance of a non-human force to start to directly interact with human society, and on that basis, infiltrate it openly while being presented as a benevolent force that's just come along at the right time to save humanity from itself. What they won't tell you is it's the non human force that's been manipulating humanity and through the global cult, manipulating events to bring about where we are now. And it's a massive version, if you like, of a phrase I coined in the 1990s: problem, reaction, solution. You create the problem, you blame someone else for it. You get the public to say something must be done about the problem. Look at the mess we're in. And then you openly offer the solutions to the problems you've created. Now, in terms of changes in society and law and what have you, usually meaning centralization of power. But this, you could have a problem, reaction, solution, for example. I'm just speaking out loud, where you have the mess that's been created on Earth, not least through the manipulation of this global cult on behalf of this non-human force. And the non-human force comes in and sorts it out and completely takes over. So there are many ways this could go. And the fear thing shouldn't be discounted either. But this Spielberg movie basically presents the benevolent face of the story, and makes the those trying to suppress the disclosure as the bad guys. Well, how about what you portray as the bad guys being controlled ultimately by those you portray as the good guys? I mean, it's you know the thing I've learned, mate, over the decades is that first of all, this force behind human control is in its base form bloody stupid, because it wouldn't want to do what it's doing unless it was. But we have to um, see the difference between cleverness and wisdom. It's very clever, for instance, to make an atomic weapon. It's not wise to use it or to do so. And so you can have a combination of ultimately, in its base state, stupid and totally misguided and imbalanced, but actually very clever in terms of its ability to manipulate. And that is fundamentally supported by the fact, and you can be much cleverer than you really are if you're holding knowledge passed on through this secret society network and held in the other dimensional level, while at the same time suppressing the target population's access to knowledge. So if you look at uh, the major players in this global cult, like the Rockefellers, for instance, as an example, um, they were fundamental in creating the American education system, which is an indoctrination system like the same systems around the world. They created, in effect, big pharma and opened the way for big pharma and the chemical pharmaceutical response to health, and they owned the media, and now the overwhelming fusion of media corporations into media corporations mean that a tiny few people, relatively very tiny, own the media, and they've moved in on the alternative media. They owned and created Silicon Valley. And so what they have done is created the sources of communication, i.e., knowledge awareness, that the population get, while themselves, via a closed secret society system, passed on advanced knowledge about the nature of reality, the nature of the non-human force, the agenda for humanity. They've passed that on through the generations and generations of the cultists who are, not everyone in the cult knows the big picture. It's very compartmentalized, but that's how they pass it on. And so you've got this tremendous kind of um, difference between what the cultists know, the inner circle cultists know about reality and everything, and what the public know. And so what they're doing now is, like they've always done, is release information to the target population designed to get a specific reaction, either, well, ideally from everybody, but they won't get it from everybody, but they're looking to get from the majority a reaction. And the very way that they're putting this alien subject into the public arena this year um, uh, begins the debate and the discussion. Oh, do you think there's aliens or whatever? They're putting it in there for a reason. We'll see as things go on. Where that reason is leading. But what they don't want us to know is the real story, that the non-human force has been manipulating human society all along. And this film actually goes nowhere in that direction. Instead, they go in the other direction. They talking about basically a benevolent force, and want to help us. Not this lot. They don't.
What we have seen in the year 2020 and then 21-22 was that when this cult, this global cult, wants to push out something the way that they did the COVID hoax, this was the most orchestrated propaganda machine in human history, whereas everybody knew what was going on within, or what they wanted people to think was going on within a few weeks, and it was relentless, right? So you would think that this is a historic thing, announcing or making it public knowledge that other life exists and has been here, whether benevolent or malevolent. This is so historic. So far, the announcement or what they have released has been sort of nonchalant. It's not really the way that you would expect an orchestrated media campaign to happen. In the movie, is there such a thing? Is there an orchestrated media campaign worldwide, sort of COVID style, or how does the communication to the public work in the movie?
No, basically, it's all going on outside of public knowledge. So you have basically the hack into the government systems, and they download all these videos of the alien presence, and the and there is a connection. This is another part of the story, is that the two people who are the prominent people in the movie, including the lady you see doing the weather forecast in the trailers, um, they were abducted as children. This is the story. And they were encoded with knowledge that they just start then to remember when the story unfolds. And that their role, I guess, uh, encoded by the aliens to do this, they then set about trying to get these videos, loads and loads of videos, um, into the public arena. And the feds then set about stopping them. And there's lots of chases and stuff like that. Um, but in the end, they get them out. But they get them out through um, a combination of all the networks. You would you get from the way it's portrayed, global networks, even not just American networks, and that would not happen unless that the cult decided they wanted it to happen. Now, can you get stuff out that the cult doesn't want? Yes, you can. Been trying to do it for 36 years. Um, and you're doing it yourself, and others do it. Yes, you can. But in terms of the center of uh, uh, communication, the big audiences, the big networks, and the big influencers, even in terms of those that get all the algorithmic support and the big funding and stuff, and get all the exposure by the system in various countries. Um, they are able to get information to a very large number of people, vast numbers of people, while those that are seeking to uncover what's really going on, they are suppressed, they're shadow banned, they find it much more difficult to get out to vast numbers of people. And when you look at the ownership, for instance, of the American media, where you've got Larry Ellison now, the biggest private funder of the Israeli Defense Forces, being handed that family being handed Paramount, which includes CBS, which is being destroyed on purpose, and they're now after CNN, and they have a massive influence in American TikTok now, and you've got these other big media conglomerates that are controlled by this cult, um, uh, that are overseeing all the communication channels, basically the major ones. There's no way in the world that the disclosure, as portrayed in the Spielberg movie, would happen unless those people wanted it to happen. So it's a bit of a fantasy film, really, in so many ways, but it's also an inversion of reality. And so uh, I was very unimpressed with it, in terms of, I thought it was very cheesy. I thought the story was very cheesy, but the various implications um, that were part of the story, um, they were misdirection. I would say, massively.
You know, I wonder about Steven Spielberg's connection. His family was deeply involved with Shabbat Lubavitch, this,
Yep.
very influential Jewish organization that, he's spoken at their events many times. His mother was heavily involved. And they, partially believe, or all of them believe, that the late Rebbe Menachem Mendel Schneerson is the Messiah and will return. And they're talking about this messianic or golden age that we're at the beginning of. This has massive implications for the entire world, and we can see developments all over the world that speak to this being implemented. Does that at all bleed into the movie, or at least a subcontext of the movie, or could
Oh,
it later be connected?
1000%. Um, the fact that there was a movie coming out called Disclosure Day, well, that's one level of it. The fact that it was directed by, and overseen by Steven Spielberg was quite another. It's another level. It's another level of, oh, I can see where this is going. And so it's turned out, because it doesn't take the story on beyond the feds trying to shut down disclosure and others trying to make disclosure happen. But what it does, is portray the non-human force, if you like, in a very benevolent, empathetic way. And that's the opposite of what is actually behind this society. Like I say, of course there's benevolent forces out there. Of course there are. But the ones that are actually manipulating human society are not. And you only got to look at the world, and you look at human history,
Exactly. You just got to look at the world to know. Yeah.
what we know about it. I mean, first of all, the entirety of known human history, or what we think of human history, there's a lot more to know about all that stuff, is the few have always controlled the many. How can that be? How can the few control the many today when there's 8 billion people, we're told? How can that be? Mathematically, it should be impossible. And so what they have to do is control the perceptions of the population, and they have to get them into different belief systems, religious belief systems, political belief systems, cultural belief systems, which are rigid and unquestioned, because then they can play them off against each other and divide and rule and get the population fighting itself. We're seeing very clearly, and not looking up and seeing actually that the different strands and strings that are attached to the different belief systems are held by the same hand, and that hand in the end is not human. And we are in a situation, as usual, where we're being diverted from what's really going on into another story. I mean, it's all stories. You look at religion; they are stories. They're different stories, and you've got to believe your story. You look at science; it's a story,
Another
and
religion.
yeah, another religion, and absolutely the same mentality as religion, even though um, orthodox science is supposed to be against religion. They are the same mentality, and they have the same effect, because um, once you can get people, and they want loads of different ones, but once you can get people to have a belief system, political, religious, whatever, that is rigid and unquestioned, that's like putting a prison cell over their mind, because they won't go there, they won't go beyond it, because if they do, they're not whatever they call themselves anymore. They are said to be, in religious terms, blasphemers, or dabbling in the occult, a word that just means hidden. Um, but you have in science, the same thing. You have orthodox science, it has its holy books of scientific orthodoxy. And if you go beyond that as a scientist, then you are said to be a pseudoscientist or dabbling in the paranormal. And the common theme between the two, religion and science, is orthodox science, is you don't go into the areas of the hidden where the answers lie. You stay in your box, and what they are what they are doing is controlling the narrative, so they control perception, which means they control behavior, which means they control us. And I've always worked on the principle of attributed to Socrates in ancient Greece, which is wisdom is knowing how little we know. To know is to know you know nothing. Your mind's always open to all possibility, because whatever you think you know at any point, you know there's always more to know. If you look at the inversion of that, it's religion, and it's the religion of science, and it's the religion of politics, where this is my belief, and I know this is how things are. Jesus will save me, or Mohammed, or is the prophet, or whatever. This is how it is. And that is the inversion again of to know is to know you know nothing and realize there's always more to know. So they're putting people in these prisons of the mind all the time and pressuring them to stay there. You're of the right in politics. Well, you can't say that then, because you are not of the right. That's very progressive what you just said. Oh, you're of the left. Oh, you can't say that because that's right wing. Same with religions in all their different forms, and science too. So um, the idea, I mean, let's just think about this. We can see an absolutely tiny, ridiculously tiny band of frequency. That's all we can see. Scientists call it visible light. It's said to be um, the electromagnetic spectrum, which is wider than visible light, is said to be 0.005% of what exists in the universe in energy in all its forms. But visible light is a tiny smear of the 0.005%. So, on that basis alone, take a breath. How can we possibly not have infinitely more to know? Because we can only see a tiny amount anyway, and infinity exists beyond that frequency band. How can we possibly know all there is to know, or think we know what we need to know? And this movie, this Spielberg movie, is very simplistic in its portrayal of the situation, which is anything but simple.
So is, by the way, so simplistic is often the view of many people that are dabbling in this arena, aliens, extraterrestrials, UFO, and so forth. Where so often the story is there's the bad guys, either it's the reptilians, the Dracos, the Greys, and then there's the Galactic Federation and those guys. They're the good guys, and they're helping us. And there's this war, and who knows? I don't know. Maybe there is a war going on. I don't know. What I do know is that this is from this, like you say, tiny perspective. It doesn't include what it especially doesn't include is asking the question, who are we in this equation really? And is it more important to find out exactly how many races, interdimensional beings exist? Or should we start with the question, who am I? Who are we really? And how come that we have been obviously under the thumb of either, representatives of our own species, or, like you say, another species from other realms that is controlling us? Who are we in this entire equation?
Well, that's the thing, you see, because if you want to stop people getting to the core, then you need cul-de-sacs. I've described it as like going along a freeway and being manipulated uh, onto the exits and into a cul-de-sac. So your cul-de-sac can be your, if you like, your specialization. Now, there's nothing wrong with having a specialization and becoming an expert on your specialization, but it's the realization that your specialization is a dot in a vast tapestry of other dots, and that you're focusing on part of the whole, nothing like the whole. And the more that you open your mind to consciousness, the true I, that this manipulative force wants to separate us from, or separate the influence of it from us, the more that you open your mind and let consciousness in. Now, we go back to something I've just said. What happens? You kind of know that you know this from your own experience and your own awakening, and so will many people watching this program. As you open your mind to more and more consciousness, what happens? The human belief systems start to dismantle. You don't believe in the human belief systems anymore, not least because they're there to keep you from the expansion of consciousness. And when you do open your mind and let consciousness in, you start to tap in to greater and greater swathes of the infinite awareness of which we are an expression. And the way I would explain it is, um, to keep it simple, there are basically two fields. There's two fields of information in the space that we are existing in, experiencing. One field is the infinite field, and that is of a certain vibrational state. And that infinite field allows you to tap ultimately into infinite awareness. But as you progress and expand, you are tapping into greater and greater and greater awareness, which is why the myopia belief systems of humans disappear. But there's another field, and this is the field that the non-human force and its cult expression want us to connect with, and that's the matrix field. That's the simulation field, which is a far more limited field in terms of knowledge and awareness, because it's meant to keep us in ignorance, not expansion of knowledge. And for me, and I've not seen anyone else say this. Maybe they have, but I've never seen it. I'm saying that the human body is a biological computer that is encoded with traits that are expressed in the way the body survives. So, when's the last time you remember breathing? Only when the last time you were out of breath, or the other time you're breathing, but the conscious mind is completely unaware of it. You go into a warm room, a cold room, and the body tweaks and responds to the environment without you consciously having any awareness that it's doing so. So all the time, the body is responding like a software program to different environmental changes and emotional changes and mental changes. But there's also, I would strongly, strongly suggest a psychological element to the biological computer. There are psychological programs running through the body, which our consciousness is experiencing this reality through. And those psychological programs can be identified. Many of them can be identified. for instance, the reptilian brain at the back of the brain, it's where we get fight or flight from, where we respond to danger, either running or freezing. It's where we get the survival response from, where the reptilian brain is constantly scanning the environment, looking for threats to survival, not just physical survival, but um, survival of relationships, survival of jobs, survival of paying the rent at the end of the month. And so the the body is a combination of survival traits, or what we would call physical traits, and also psychological traits. Now, if you don't open your mind to consciousness beyond the body computer, the body program runs your life. It dictates your responses, your emotional responses, your mental responses, your perceptual responses. And this is where they this network wants us to be, because we're controllable then, because we're responding to program. So when I've traveled around the world before I started getting banned from everywhere, I saw all these different cultures and different countries and different dominant religious uh, countries. But no matter what they believed, and it was all kind of belief, or nearly all of it was belief, uh, they responded to situations basically the same. There's a reaction program, and much of it coming from the reptilian brain, but there's a reaction program going on that supersedes um, your individual belief. And where you get the Mavericks from, people who are not predictable, who have an open mind that will go where the information and the evidence takes them, rather than being welded to a belief. The Mavericks are those that open to consciousness, and that opening to consciousness is what we call awakening. And what I've seen, particularly since COVID, is many people coming out of the mainstream, some who were already in the alternative media, but then transformed what they were saying. But many who came in from the mainstream media, who took it over because they got all the algorithmic support and all the funding, and they are invariably uh, welded to a religious belief. So immediately they're in a prison of the mind. They're supposed to be exploring all possibility and passing it on, but no, that they've got a religious belief that is immediately censoring where they will go and where they won't go. And overwhelmingly, massively, they had a right of center political belief, which again would edit and censor where they would go. And those people have basically taken over so much of the center of the alternative media. They told us to vote for Trump, joke. Told us that Israel was wonderful, joke. And then turned against both. And you are building a barricade around the awakening, and you're saying the conspiracy you need to awake from is political and financial and religious, in terms of, follow the religion we do. Um, and yet we're back again to Socrates. Wisdom is knowing how little we know. It's knowing that to know is to know you know nothing. And so you're always open to expanding your awareness. But they've built barricades around it. and
Is it not their fear of
conscious of central that
uncertainty?
barricade.
Is it not their
Say again?
fear? Is it not their fear of uncertainty? I feel like, I'm watching every now and then, tuning in. I'm sure you're too. People like Tucker Carlson, and there's so much to say about his background and who he is, a puppet for. But you can tell there's this moving into a new dimension, and then there's this fear of uncertainty, and it needs to be sort of immediately satisfied with a new certainty. None of them are true, but it's like this addiction to being certain and not having the
You are
flow.
absolutely right. You are absolutely right, and I've written about this in books like the Roadmap.
This one here,
Um,
brilliant book, by the
yeah,
way, folks.
yeah, because um, basically, humanity in general, especially the so-called intellectual people, they live in a left brain prison, and there's a there's a Scottish psychiatrist I quote in the book who has studied to a great extent the um, the two hemispheres of the brain, the left hemisphere and the right hemisphere, and they have very different functions. I mean, the brain is a hologram, like everything's a hologram, the illusory physical, but they so holograms spread um, information and function over the whole, as well as having specialized parts. But when you break it down, the left hemisphere and the right hemisphere specialization are very different. So the right brain is much more expansive. It's the artist. It's the maverick. It's the out of the box thinker. Whereas the left brain, which dominates human society, is about language, it's about data, it's about function. And I have described it, it's like the left brain is so obsessed with the twigs it can't see the forest. The right brain can see the forest or has the potential to see the forest. And interestingly, one of his findings, which I completely agree with, is the left brain is utterly dependent on certainty. It demands certainty. The right brain can operate in states of flux, where the outcome is not known. So it's just living in the moment, if you like. Whereas the left brain wants certainty. If the left brain was involved in a football match, it would want to control the two sides and the referee, so it knew the outcome before the kickoff. And that is actually the mentality, surprise, surprise, of this cult and this non-human force. This is why they are trying to control all sides in everything, because they want to control the outcome. They have great fear of states of flux, and they. I talk about this in the books, and we can talk about it another time. But this consciousness that, I mean, we talk about aliens and humans and what have you, but the difference between different states of behavior, whether you want to control or whether you don't, whether you respect or whether you don't, it comes down to your state of consciousness, your state of awareness. And so this non-human force that is manipulating human society is an expression of a state of awareness. I mean, the Gnostics called this awareness Yoda Baoth, or the Demiurge, and there are different names for it in different religions and different cultures, but they're different names for the same force. This state of consciousness, which is pathological, psychopathic, and has no empathy, ironically, and no compassion, is then played out through the cult. So you have the cultists expressing, your major cultists who are orchestrating wars and orchestrating conflict on every level, or deprivation, suffering, all these things, they are expressions of this same consciousness. And so, what they then want to do is to infuse this consciousness into the population. And the more they do, the more they'll control it. And so, if you are looking at this, this consciousness having a deeply, being deeply frightened of not knowing the outcome, states of flux, a lack of certainty, then that plays out through the cult. It does. You've only got to study it. And you see these people, they're terrified of uncertainty and not being able to call events before the sequence starts. And now and what they've been doing is trying to infuse that, not least through the body program, into the target population. So it's understandable when you look at it from that perspective that so many of the human race, basically all the cultists, but the vast tracts of the human race are desperate for certainty. Now, what is orthodox science? It's going in search of certainty. The whole history of orthodox science is we've discovered this is how it is.
The science is settled.
Yeah, the science is settled. Follow the science. And then further along the road, you realize that was a load of old crap, because now we know better. But this was certainty, this is how it is. And any scientist, proper scientist, that came along and said, actually, I think your proposition on that is flawed. I don't think it's like that at all. They are.
But that certainty causes for wars. It causes wars. It causes for people to be locked up, for people to be in mental institute. Like there's a whole system. And then you move on to the next state of certainty, and you pretend that the other state of certainty just didn't exist. It's insanity. It's complete insanity.
Look at religion, classic. You've got, what are religions? They are certainties. They are stories believed in to become a certainty. So, Jesus will save me if I believe in Jesus. I don't have to do anything any good. I don't have to be, nice to people or any of that. I just have to believe in Jesus and I'll be saved, That is simple. That is simple. It's simplistic. It's certainty. Oh no, if I believe in Allah and I do what Allah says, then I'll
get the virgin.
Allah's heaven and I don't know, 72 virgins, whatever. Therefore, this is my certainty. And if you're Jewish, a follower of Judaism, this is my certainty. Hinduism, another certainty. And then what they do is they play the certainties off against each other. And people who are opening their consciousness, which anybody can, it's a choice, and through the realization that whatever we know, there's always more to know, they are looking on at this clash of certainties going, what are you doing? And in so many ways, there are elements of this Spielberg film that drop into like certainty or what they are trying to get you to believe. And what is rigid, unquestioning certainty? It's overwhelmingly simplistic to form certainty. And as the Nazis used to say, if you tell people the same thing over and over again, they'll get to believe it. It will become their version of certainty. And whether it's religious or whether it's scientific or whether it's political, it's all certainty at war with other certainties. And I'm not bloody certain, because I know that whatever I know or think I know there's always more to know. So, how can you be solidified into certainty when you know that? You can't. And that's what true awakening is. It's constantly keeping your mind open and tapping into consciousness and knowing that there is no limit. I mean, what is infinite awareness? It's a state of all possibility, all potential, all knowledge. And thus, when does that ever run out? It doesn't. But that's the worst nightmare of the manipulators of human society, human and non-human. They have to keep us in a box of certainty of belief, including the certainty that your belief is true and everyone else's is false. And that leads to wars and conflict.
David, my last question for today, if we could go back, and obviously we've done that, but if we could go back to the year 2019 and say to people, I would say to people, read a David Icke book, watch the recording of Event 201, which was predictive programming exactly for what happened with COVID, and sit quietly in a room by yourself and keep asking yourself, who am I really? And you might not fall for this entire psyop. We might or might not, we don't know, but we might be at the beginning of, with this disclosure thing, of at some point another COVID style uh, psyop information propaganda campaign. In preparation of that, what would you recommend people should do? What will, for those who are new to this subject or not as involved in all of this, what should people do now before such a big propaganda campaign happens?
Well, there's a number of things, but I'll pick up maybe two. First of all, the most important of all, we need, I would suggest, to redefine self-identity, who we are. Because what the manipulators want is for us to self-identify as human. We are not human. We are having a human experience in a biological body program designed to control the way we think. But we don't have to. You can override that with consciousness, but only if you're aware that there is consciousness that you can tap into to override it. It's interesting. I'm just reading a book. It's an interesting book, but it's about how the brain works electrically and how the body works electrically and how everything works electrically. Yeah, it does. But that's the bloody matrix. That's the simulation. That's the virtual reality based on electricity and electromagnetism. And we constantly misunderstand that, and science is all along, until one or two now are breaking away, thank goodness, perceive that consciousness and the brain are the same thing. They're not. The brain is the way that consciousness expresses itself into this reality. And if you can program the brain in a certain way, not least through information designed to program, you can shut out consciousness so that it doesn't get expressed through the brain. And so we need to put aside our self-identity with being human. It's not who we are, it's what we're experiencing. And the two are not the same thing. So put down the labels of human in terms of that's who you are. And realize that we are expressions of an infinite flow of consciousness. And if you take away all the vehicles, your physical body as it's perceived, your astral body, which some people call the soul, etc., and just delete all the different bodies that allow us to interact with different dimensions and frequencies of energy, and get to the core of who we all are, which is consciousness, simply a state of being aware. And that state of being aware is part of an infinite state of awareness. And the thing is that as you uh, open yourself to a expansion of self-identity by leaving the I am a human behind, doesn't mean you don't, interact with other humans and get on with your life, but you are aware that it's an experience and not you. Once you expand your self identity, automatically, as your self identity expands, your consciousness expands deeper and deeper and deeper into the infinite state of awareness. And suddenly, the real awakening, you start to see what you didn't see before. And the other thing to remember as a kind of an antidote to all that is whatever authority tells you is almost certainly a lie, at best a half truth, because most of the people in authority, not the inner circle cultists, but most of the people in authority, they're bloody programmed as well. It's a hierarchy of programming and perceptual programming, and when we can break out of that programmed hierarchy, that's true awakening. That's when you don't follow the herd. I've never followed the herd. I mean, it's been my worst bloody nightmare all my life, literally. My following the herd, yeah, because you have an awareness that you know don't follow me, I'm lost, as the saying goes. And you go your own way. You become your own uniqueness, because there's no contradiction between being an expression of all awareness and uniqueness. Uniqueness, it means you're a unique expression of infinite awareness. What you get as you go the other way into the program, into following the herd, is you become more and more uniform, more and more not unique. And if you are looking around and you're thinking, well, yeah, I'm pretty much like them, and I'm pretty much like them, and I'm pretty much like them. Well, lots of people watching this program won't be saying that, of course, but but any that are, it's worth asking yourself, well, why am I the same as everybody else? But wisdom is knowing how little you know, in it. Why are we all thinking the same? Because we all think we know the same. What's all that about? Programming. That's what it's about, and we don't have to be. We can break it anytime we want.
The great David Icke. David, thank you so much for coming on today and going deeper beyond sort of the sensationalist headlines of not just the movie, but this entire movement, and going deeper, which is where we need to go. David, you have a big event coming up next year. Many things in between. You have this amazing latest book out, The Roadmap, and where can people keep up with everything that you're doing? What is the best way to stay on top of where you're at these days?
Well, there's two ways. One is davidike.com, my website that goes back a long time now. And the other one is iconic.com, which is our media platform where we do documentaries. We just got a new documentary coming out called Sunspiracy, which is about the interaction between humans and the sun, and how they're trying to intervene in that and break it. It's very, very, very interesting movie. That's going to be out very soon. I'm going to be at a premiere in Birmingham, in the centre of England, on Friday evening. If people want tickets for that, they can go to iconic.com. And I am doing another arena event to thousands of people in Nottingham in the center of England in May 2027, because I want to get together as people in one space of like mind, and obviously hours of information, but also that energetic unity of thousands of people together will be absolutely fantastic. And I'm doing an event in Eastbourne in the on the south coast of England in September with lots of people from America who specialize in different areas. And I've listened to them; they're very, very good. And I'll be pulling the whole the dots together. And then I'll start another book in after that, and we kick on because there's always more to know and always more to communicate. And if people um, are starting to go round and round and round and round and round, and not bringing anything new into it, then we need to ask ourselves why that is, because there's always more to know.
David Icke, never slowing down. Also, we'll put the links all in the video description. Please hop over to David's YouTube channel. He was reinstated early this year after a long fight with YouTube, but thankfully he's back very, very close to 1 million subscribers, which I think is
Yeah,
awesome. Yeah, I think that's fantastic. So please subscribe.
it's been amazing. It's been amazing since I came back after a 5.5 year ban. The numbers have increased very much. So we get to 1 million. Yeah,
That's
okay.
exciting.
There you go.
You used to be, back before you were banned, you were one of the biggest channels out there. A lot has changed in the field, and thankfully, real, solid, great, truthful information is making a comeback. So, David, once again, thank you. Thank you so much for everything you do.
Pleasure, mate.
And
Pleasure, mate.
for who you are. It's such an honor to be here with you in this crazy world at the same time.
Yeah, ditto.
Thank you. And Inspired Tribe, thank you so much for tuning in. We love you. We appreciate you. And we'll be back with you again very, very soon. Your environment shapes everything, your thoughts, your health, your energy. But most people never question the invisible field they live in. We did, and that's when FLFE found us. It's not a product, it's a field of pure life force energy that lifts everything it touches. We now live in it 24/7, and we would love to invite you to experience it too. Start your free 15-day trial now. No pressure, no strings attached. Just the truth, resonance, and peace.